For antiwar.com and Chaos Radio 95.9 in Austin, Texas, I'm Scott Horton. This is Anti-War Radio. All right, so now on to our next guest. It's Grant F. Smith, and I have a page here full of the many books he's written. Spy Trade, How Israel's Lobby Undermines America's Economy. Foreign Agents, the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, from the 1963 Fulbright hearings to the 2005 espionage scandal. America's Defense Line, the Justice Department's battle to register the Israel lobby as agents of a foreign government. Visa Denied, How Anti-Arab Visa Policies Destroy U.S. Exports. Deadly Dogma, How Neoconservatives Broke the Law to Deceive America. He is the director of IRMEP, which is the Institute for Research, Middle Eastern Policy. That's IRMEP.org. And you can find what he writes at original.antiwar.com/Smith-Grant. Welcome back to the show.
Hey, Scott. Thank you so much. Just to really underscore the importance of anti-war, you know, either me or some of my collaborators will spend years trying to get documents declassified to write some of these articles, and anti-war actually publishes them, and they get wide distribution. And I'm totally amazed at the work that's being done, particularly to debunk some of these recent disinformation campaigns. You know, Phil Giraldi, Jason Dates. I just find that to be absolutely incredible, the way one single website can take down these various network distribution disinformation campaigns. It's really, really amazing.
Well, thanks. We try, and we're always very happy to run your stuff. And for that matter, you know, we always take a very Catholic view on this, and we feature everybody from the left, right, libertarian, and pretty much, wherever you are, as long as you're with us on whichever particular issue you're writing about, and more or less non-intervention in general, we try to feature everything by all the world's best writers along those lines. And, you know, I was a huge fan of antiwar.com before I ever got lucky enough to start working there and doing this show for them and all that kind of thing. So I totally agree with you from the perspective of a consumer of antiwar.com
right,
as well.
That is
appreciate it when you say that as a member of it, you know?
Great.
All right, so listen, let's talk about your most recent article here. I guess this ran yesterday or the day before. Israel violates economic sanctions against Iran. Israel's rich but nutty history. So, first of all, before we talk about Israel violating economic sanctions against Iran, which sounds like a lot of fun, maybe you can detail for us the new sanctions. There are sanctions that have passed the House and the Senate. There's State Department proposals and administration proposals for sanctions. I don't know whether they've signed the one passed by the Congress or if those are just resolutions. Exactly what? I know Hillary Clinton's trying to push something through the United Nations Security Council. They're having trouble with the Chinese. So if you could just tell us all about the different kinds of sanctions in play and, what looks likely to actually be implemented and give us as much detail as you can about how these sanctions are supposed to work here.
Yeah, the most recent sanctions, and there have been unilateral sanctions just imposed by the United States. They've been attempting to quietly put together multilateral sanctions and, of course, ultimately get the UN involved. But, basically the most recent sanctions were really targeting, and here we're talking about specifically the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, targeting certain Revolutionary Guard members, trying to diminish the financial flows of any Guard member who they thought was involved in the nuclear program, et cetera, et cetera. So highly targeted sanctions. But, you've got on this whole other level, the Treasury Department's new, it's not spanking new, it was created back in 2004, Office of Terrorism and Financial Intelligence, which for a long time has been targeting Iranian shippers and companies doing business with Iran quietly. So they'll go in with some threats against a bank saying, hey, we know that you're dealing with Iran. If you have any branches in the United States or in New York, we're going to work with the local district attorney to file some charges in an attempt to, expose you, shame you, and also fine you for violating unilateral U.S. sanctions. So although the sanctions regime is heating up because we've had some action in the Congress to pass broad sanctions which border on an actual blockade of gasoline supplies. These have been a series, a creeping sanctions regime led by this secretive Treasury unit. And I think it's really worthwhile to talk a little bit about that specific Treasury unit because, all of the things that we saw before the Iraq War, if you were an anti-war listener and you knew a lot about the Office of Special Plans, you knew it was essentially a black box that had very little public disclosure into what it was doing around the world. You knew that it was hardwired to the Israel lobby, and you knew it was also diverting the institution it was housed in away from its mandate, which at that time was trying to get the Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, trying to move it towards some predetermined objectives. Well, the office that's housed in the Treasury Department was a creation which was lobbied for by AIPAC and the Washington Institute for Near East Policy to put together this office in the Treasury in 2004. It vetted Stuart Levy, who Bush approved to lead it and who Obama has kept on. And although it claims to be safeguarding the financial system against money laundering and terrorism generators, it's rapidly proven itself to be mainly a sharp-edged tool for setting a lot of these tripwires it looks as though what they're trying to do is sort of surround and encompass Iran and maybe, if they're really lucky, get them to leave the non-proliferation treaty so that they can become an even easier target. But one of the reasons I say that this unit and these sanctions are somewhat empty is really what the TFI unit at Treasury won't tackle. Even the 9/11 report talked a lot about how U.S. support for Israel was one of the main reasons for the attacks, and certainly within that entire domain, illegal settlements have been a big deal. Yet this particular Treasury unit, even though something like 50 to 60 billion has been laundered from various parts of the world, including the U.S. into Israeli settlements, they won't touch an issue like that. So they're not really about any type of money laundering. They're really about
when it came to the Office of Special Plans, those guys, it was basically a population of people picked from the American Enterprise Institute, from the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. Do the men who run this organization at the Treasury Department, what's it called again? And are they as hardwired to the neoconservative think tanks as the OSP was?
They're hardwired to AIPAC's think tank, which is the Washington Institute for Near East Policy. And one of the reasons you can tell that is almost all of their actual public events are actually at the Washington Institute.
Oh, well, that's
most
convenient.
of their outside consultants, just like the Office of Special Plans, would source consultants from the American Enterprise Institute to do a particular job. These guys source their consultants from AIPAC's think tank. So it's if you follow where the people came from, who was lobbying for it, et cetera, you see it's just another Office of Special Plans, except it's not at the Pentagon. It's at the Treasury Department. And I would say the biggest problem is there's no Karen Kwiatkowski in place to say, hey, look what's going on here.
Yeah.
It's even less transparent than the Office of Special Plans. I know that from personal experience because we sent them Freedom of Information Act requests saying, look, you've gone to Jerusalem 5 times. During any of those visits, did you happen to confront this $50 to $60 billion in money laundering for illegal settlements? Because that is a terrorism generator, folks. And they say, no, we're not going to respond to FOIAs. So I would say this is an extremely dangerous development because they're completely intransparent and because of the way they operate.
All right. Now, what can we expect from these sanctions against Iran when the rubber meets the road here, you think?
Well, that was the whole point of the article. The free market, You can put on hobnail boots and try and kill it and stomp on it, but it's awfully difficult to actually put in place any sort of targeted sanctions, because the minute you do that, suddenly you create margins for, if you want to call them smugglers or if you just want to call them traders, are going to rush into the market and attempt to supply and get the extra margin for whatever it is you're imposing sanctions on.